Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So over the weekend, a Tesla, a 2015 Tesla Model S, was on autopilot and, well, smashed into a cop car. How would you like to be the guy in the car that said, "Oh, I didn't mean to hit your car. It was on auto. It wasn't me. It was the car who did it. The car drove into you, officer. I swear, it wasn't me." There's part of me that goes, I think the guy probably did it on purpose. But probably not. But evidently, the cop pulled somebody over. There was an accident. He was on the side of the road. Got sideswiped by the autopilot vehicle. And this is one of those moments where you start talking about what are we going to do in the coming weeks, months, and years as we move to more automated vehicles, maybe even big trucks. Here to share some thoughts on what that could look like, I've asked Greg Regan to come talk with us. He's the Secretary-Treasurer of the Transportation Trades Department of the AFL-CIO. Today, he testified in front of the Subcommittee on Consumer Protection and the Commerce Committee on Energy and Commerce on just this, the promises and perils and the potential of automobile technologies. Greg, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me.
So the story with this Tesla, we've seen a couple of these automated vehicles smashing into things. This one's kind of ironic in a cop car. This stuff happens, and it's going to happen as we have more of these vehicles on the road, I believe.
That is 100% true. And you know what's scary about it, and the proponents of automated technology will tell you that they're going to save lives. This is safer, that most accidents are human error. But when we talk about traffic accidents right now from manually operated vehicles, that is well-documented data. That is the full sample size of all the drivers in the United States. When you look at automated technology, that is voluntarily supplied data. So people that are actually testing this stuff and giving out, information about what the future might be, we don't have a real sense about how safe it is, and there aren't strict federal guidelines in place to make sure that it's going to be safe. And Tesla, we're talking about level 2 automation, which is very, very low. If you're talking about self-driving vehicles, that's much further away, and that tech is a lot more uncertain right now.
Yeah, I mean, the trucking industry where I come out of, they're licking their chops, can't wait. Everyone has seen the Budweiser truck Otto, who made the first delivery of beer without a human being, and corporate America, they're thrilled because, hey, we can get our transportation needs met, and we don't have to pay those pesky people.
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand why they're doing it. I mean, everyone wants to reduce their overhead, but it's just extremely short-sighted for legislators to think that we should just be speeding this along and removing every roadblock you can to delivering these vehicles to the road. And, if you're thinking about safety, safety is a really important part of this. We need to make sure it's fully tested, that it's not going to endanger people, other operators on the road, pedestrians, bicyclists, all of those things. We also need to think about the workforce implications long-term, because you're looking at, I think the estimates in the commercial driving sector alone from automation is 3 million jobs that could be lost or drastically altered. What happens to our economy if you have 3 million people just like that are gone? And we should be thinking about that. We have the tools right now to be able to address this on the front end. Why are we trying to just rush this stuff to the market right now?
Yeah, no, I've said, for a while, I think in the next 10 years, you're going to see the end of long haul truck driving. Where you're going to put a set of doubles or a truck on the turnpike here in Pennsylvania. You're going to run it through the Ohio Turnpike, through the Indiana Turnpike, right there to Chicago, where it'll then be put on another kind of track, almost like a trackless train track, if you will. Is that too ambitious, do you think? Do you agree that 10 years we're probably going to see some of these convoys of trucks nationwide, as we've seen in places like Arizona and Nevada?
I think that's a little more ambitious than I would say. I think even experts and one of the panelists, the Republican panelists on the hearing today, was saying we're not there yet. We have 20, maybe 30 years before you're talking about full autonomy, where driver is not necessary at all. But the important thing is we're setting the rules right now. We're writing the regulations right now to make sure it's done safely. One point I made in the hearing that I like to make is, too often, if you look at other areas of transportation, the FAA, for instance, is often referred to as the tombstone agency, where regulations are written in blood, meaning there's a catastrophe that happens, people died, and that's when good regulation happens, whether it be rest and training rules or whether it be, aircraft certification that we saw with Boeing most recently. We have an opportunity now with the brand new technology to prevent that from being the case, where we start at the beginning and make sure that it's totally safe before we deploy it, before we have to respond to a situation where dozens or hundreds of people died because there was a flaw in the technology. And that's, I think, a really important role that Congress and the administration have to play here.
Yeah, I mean, my fear has always been throughout this entire discussion, and this is not new. This is something that we've talked about on this program numerous times over the years. My fear is that corporate America has such outweighed power that a lot of this stuff gets pushed through, and we don't ever get a voice or a say. And before you know it, you got 80,000-pound vehicles careening down the road with nobody behind the wheel.
Yeah, and the thing I've heard over and over again is if we don't do this now, if we don't rush, we're going to get beat by China. China's going to win the race on autonomy, and or any other country. They're going to set the rules. And I would say, what does win the race mean? Because we are the largest, if not the number one largest, the second largest consumer market in the world. The manufacturers are going to want to be able to sell this stuff here. We have a chance to set a really high bar, and that really high bar is going to be both in terms of safety, workforce considerations, environmental impact. All this stuff is something we can write the policy for now to get it right. And frankly, if we can do something where we are not only growing and innovating from a tech perspective, but also growing job opportunities and creating career ladders and apprenticeship programs so the workforce is brought along with the technology, that would be a really, frankly, precedent-setting opportunity, and one that we could set the example for the rest of the world on this.
Yeah, now we're not just talking about big trucks. We're talking about all kinds of vehicles because I'm sure you've seen them. There was talk in Philadelphia of having like little food delivery carts, running around, these little robot things running all over the place, delivering stuff. That kind of stuff as well, because that causes, those things cause opportunities for danger as well.
Yeah, no, all of it, and it's all the same. When it comes down to it, it's the same technology. So, there have been previous legislation that exempted vehicles over 10,000 pounds. Say we're going to try to create waiver systems and exemptions for small vehicles, little delivery things, and personal vehicles. But it's all fundamentally the same technology that's going to be going into a lot of these different vehicles. So we can't just try to wall off one sector of the economy, because this tech is going to come. And we're not naive enough to think we can stop it necessarily, but we do think that with appropriate policy making and with the right safeguards in place, we can actually have innovation that doesn't come at the expense of people, but actually grows the economy for everybody.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a Luddite. I'm not somebody who says, we need to smash the machines. I know
Right.
that this technology is coming, and it may down the road be something very positive and helpful for society, but I worry about those 3 million people, myself included. Although I'm getting towards the end of my driving career, I worry about the next person who's coming behind me who needs these jobs to be able to support their family. We have done a horrible job in this country of helping those who have lost jobs because of bad trade deals, technological changes, whatever. We have done a really bad job of helping that generation who's losing out. I mean, you look at all of the people who lost jobs because of deindustrialization. We basically just left them high and dry. I would hope now we learn lessons and we make sure that we don't leave those folks high and dry in the future.
And you're 100% right. And perhaps more importantly is making sure that the jobs that come up are quality jobs. They're middle-class jobs, jobs that people can earn a living from and retire with dignity on at the end of them. Too often people say, well, we'll create other jobs. The economy will absorb these job losses and other people will have new jobs. Well, the quality of the job makes a big difference. A lot of times what you're talking about, the ones that could be lost here, are unionized jobs with good retirement, healthcare benefits. And we can't be in a situation, where we're just replacing middle-class jobs with low-income, scraping by jobs, and it's just going to be a disaster for our economy and for, frankly, the majority of Americans who rely on this for work.
It's again, it's something we need to get really in front of. So, what was the mood today in talking about where we're heading?
It was really positive, I thought. I mean, obviously there are people that want to see this. They want America to be a leader. They want us to be out ahead of other countries and competitors. But, with very few exceptions, members of Congress were talking about the need to address workforce questions and the need to address safety questions. And between me and Jason Levine from the Auto Safety Coalition, we were providing them with the answers to some of these complicated questions. We presented a framework that we worked with along with the Teamsters and developed principles that any AV legislation should be based upon. And, by and large, people were very receptive to the arguments we were making.
So walk me through some of those basic tenets of what should be in legislation that we're talking about.
Number one is safety. We can't have exemption-based and waiver-based regulations. That can't be what we do off the bat. If we're going to be releasing new tech into onto our roadways where millions of people operate every day, we can't just be saying go do it and we'll figure out the complications later. There is an auto safety alliance that has safety tenets that we think are a key part of it. The other part is making sure that there are letters of opportunity for the workers that are at these that could be affected by this, and making sure that the unions are a big part of that. So collective bargaining agreements are going to be able to translate, making sure that there are notifications, advanced notifications, workforce impact assessments when these things are deployed with public dollars. And then also making sure that equity issues are a strong concern here, so that we're making sure, if you look at 40% of bus drivers are people of color, or commercial drivers are people of color, and women provide a big part of that workplace as well. How do we make sure that those people aren't disproportionately harmed when we are advancing this technology into the workplace, and that they have an opportunity to move, whether it be within the same agency, if it's a transit agency, or within the same company, that they have the training opportunities and the apprenticeship programs available so they can grow their careers and find work advancing this technology in a different way without sacrificing the benefits they've earned.
I've often said that I'd like to see something of a technology tax as we automate and those jobs become computerized. That there's got to be some kind of a technology tax to help pay for the workers who are displaced because of it, so that we have an easy transition. Because look, I know truck drivers who are making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. The second you take that job away from them, most of them, the best prospects they're going to end up with are $25,000, $30,000 a year jobs. Sorry, most people can't live that way. There's got to be something that softens that blow, that guarantees some income and makes that transition easier when this happens.
That's absolutely right. I mean, if you look at the reports, the economists have said that for displaced workers, their earning potential is severely depressed, and you're talking 10 years after they're displaced. You're setting back an entire generation of people, and especially in a country where wage inequality is already so high. If we're going to allow this type of disruption into the workforce to take place without seriously considering the impacts and how we can mitigate the effects on working people, then we're failing as policymakers. We're failing as a government at that point.
Yeah, no, I'm sure someone made the argument that we need this, Greg, because there aren't enough drivers. We have a labor shortage. We've got a labor shortage. Just like in the restaurant industry, we've got a labor shortage, Greg, because those lazy people don't want to do the job. And I've said that if we truly had a labor shortage, if in the trucking industry there truly was a labor shortage, wages would go up and conditions would get a whole lot better. And yet that doesn't quite seem to be happening as much as one would expect.
Yeah, we have a good job shortage. We have a shortage of people willing to pay people what they're worth. And that's too often the case. I mean, you see it in the pilot industry, not to go back to aviation again, but they always talk about a pilot shortage. No, we don't have a pilot shortage. We have a shortage of people willing to work for $20,000 a year and work their way up through decades and put themselves in debt. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. We end up losing a lot of pilots to go fly for big carriers overseas because they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, I actually know a couple people who just that. You're spot on, right? So last line of questioning I've got for you, because as I said, I'm not a Luddite. I do think that there is some advantage to this, especially as I get older. In the next 20 years, there may be a point like my grandmother. We took her driver's license, and as soon as you took her mobility away, her quality of life went down. I think automated vehicles could be a good thing for somebody in their retirement years. So I'm not against it. I'm not horribly opposed, but again, it comes back to what you said. We have to have safe. It has to be safe. There has to be some equity involved, and it's got to be heavily regulated.
Yeah, and not once in our testimony, and not once during the question and answer did we ever say stop tech. That's not what we're calling for here. We're really just calling for them to do it the right way. And I meant what I said earlier. There is a unique opportunity right now for the federal government to address potential problems on the front end and not have to go back and say, whoops, wow, I didn't see this coming, and then try to put the genie back in the bottle. I mean, this is fairly unique because we have seen it coming. We see what the potential impacts can be. We have examples throughout history of when these big disruptions to the workforce happen, what it does. And I think there is a responsibility for these lawmakers and for the federal government, for the regulators to do it right. And we're willing to be a partner here. We want to be there with them and do it the right way. We're not going to tell them F no on this on technology, because we're not stupid.
Right. And the other part of this, that my great fear right now is all this stuff runs on the internet, basically. I mean, it's all web based, is it not? I mean, it's all GPS based. The 5G technology that they keep talking about are how these things are supposed to communicate. And we're so far, China and the rest of the world in 5G technology. I don't think I'll ever feel safe at where we are, given the position that we're in, especially with China having the world's lead in 5G technology.
Well, cybersecurity is another big part of this. Let's be honest. We saw the ramifications and how easily an adversary can hack into a critical part of our infrastructure with what happened at the Carolina pipeline and the disruption that causes. Can you imagine if someone figures out a way to hack these computers in these cars and then take control of the vehicles? I mean, these are all questions that I hope people are seriously considering. And frankly, that was one of the things I found most promising from the Republican side of the committee today, was that they were raising concerns about cybersecurity that hopefully will cause them to take a breath and realize we need to do it right.
Calm it down a little bit. But Greg, I appreciate your being there. I appreciate your voice, and I'm glad you came and shared some thoughts with us. I hope you'll come back again real soon and keep us up to date.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Greg Regan. He is the Secretary Treasurer there at the Transportation Trades Department of the AFL-CIO. Make sure you check out their website, ttd.org. We'll get links out so you can do that. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.